Coming to you almost live from the Herbert I. Greenberg Studios at WHIG, it's Up Late with Sam Bass.
Thank you, Scott Smith, and welcome to Up Late with Sam Bass. Hey, let me take a minute to go ahead and thank my sponsors. ServPro Rocky Mount Tarboro for our great green room. Thank you. And our newest sponsor, Allegra Marketing Print Mail, for this great backdrop. I mean, look at that quality work right there. This backdrop is the envy of every other WHIG host, I'm told. Waiting in the ServPro green room tonight is my special guest and old friend, Mike Manazir. Mike is a retired two-star admiral and a Top Gun fighter pilot. He's also a best-selling author. His book, Learn How to Lead to Win, recently won a Global Book Award. And he's met Tom Cruise. It's pretty cool. It would have been more cool if he met Will Ferrell. Maybe he has, I don't know, but Tom Cruise is okay, I guess. So you might remember Tom Cruise in the movie Maverick. He had the call sign Maverick, and his backseat guy was Goose, Maverick and Goose. So tonight, Mike is going to tell us what his call sign was. But first, while we're on the subject, I have a top 5 list for you. Maybe Mike knows some of these guys. Here are the top 5 most uncomfortable call signs. And these are real, folks. I did not make these up. Our research staff, crack research staff, got them for me. Here they are. Number 5, Pampers. So the story goes, this pilot was sitting in the back of an F-14. He suffered something called a nozzle failure during the flight. A nozzle failure, that doesn't sound good. But I think that means he wet his pants, possibly. Not very cool. I'd hate to get stuck with that name. Number 4, Dingle. So the guy's last name was Barry. Major Dingle Barry. Has a nice ring to it. Number 3, Banana. This guy's last name was Hammock. I think you get the idea here. Number 2, this might be my favorite, Hyde. So it seems like this pilot was, when he was sober, he was Dr. Jekyll, but when he got drunk, he was full-on Mr. Hyde. Supposedly everyone liked the drunk version better. I guess he was a lot more fun, a lot more personality. I can actually identify with this one a little bit. We'll leave it there. Whoa, that was good. All right, sorry about that. Can you bleep that out?
Sure.
Sorry. That apple juice is strong. And the most uncomfortable call sign is PE. Stands for premature ejection. Get your mind out of the gutter, folks. Premature ejection. So it seems like this pilot actually hit the ejection switch before he even took off. So, not good. So I'm guessing this guy's probably a younger pilot because older, more experienced pilots will never have this problem. That's just what I'm saying. So, moving on. There were actually a few more that were a little bit more uncomfortable than this, but you know, we're not trying to get fined by the FCC here. So right now Mike is watching from our ServPro green room, and I would like to challenge him. You know, I challenge a lot of people on here. Challenge him to come up with a call name for me. I think it's probably pretty easy, but we'll see what he comes up with. So we're going to be talking to Mike about his many accomplishments later. But I want to take a few minutes to toot my own horn. A few weeks ago, I actually won the People's Choice for Nash County's Best Ambassador. Look at that, Jet. Jet Hatu was my competition. And if you know Jet, you'll know that it's a big deal for me to beat her in anything because Jet is just too much. But you may remember a few weeks ago on my show, we had Jet on and we talked about this and we made a friendly little wager. And all I got to say is, Jet, you still owe me lunch, okay? So it felt pretty good to get recognized for hard work instead of just my good looks for a change. I may not be a Tom Cruise or a Top Gun pilot or a best-selling author, but apparently I have my admirers. We'll be right back with my special guest and my most accomplished friend, Mike Manazir. Do not eject from your seat.
When you're the leader in disaster cleanup and restoration, how do you make like it never even happened happen? Let it rain, Randy! Woo! Yes! By being prepared for anything! Woo! Whatever comes your way, there's a pro for that.
Serve Pro, like it never even happened.
Welcome back. I am sitting here with the man himself, Mike Manazir. This is Mike's second time in Rocky Mount. He was here for a Chamber Power breakfast a few months back. We're very fortunate to get him back in Rocky Mount all the way from his home in Annapolis tonight. So his most recent accomplishment is writing this book, Learn How to Lead to Win. It's a compilation of his personal stories and leadership lessons. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Hey, Sam, it's great to see you again. It's wonderful to be here.
Always good to see you. Mike and I have a long history together. Hopefully we can keep this thing contained to our period of time here. We're going to do the best we can. So first I want to talk about your book a little bit. What made you want to write a book?
Well, you know, there's 33 powerful stories in there, and they're all related to my experience in the Navy. And the clunky title, Learn How to Lead to Win, is that way because I always wanted to teach people like how to lead. Mm-hmm. And if you lead correctly, your team's going to win. And so we focused on that. And so I had those stories clunking around in my head for decades. And I was with a friend of mine about a year ago, early 2022, and I told the story, and he says, "You ought to write a book." And I said, "I have no time. I have a job. I have got no time to do this." And he said, "Well, you get this special software on your computer that makes a Word document, and you just talk into the microphone, like a lot like that one, mm-hmm. and it writes a document for you." And I go, "Oh, that's interesting." He goes, "And I'll help you." And so we started in April of 22, and I took those stories, and there were more than 33, and we just put them in a book. That's
one of my daughter's friends, Amber, talking about you, asked if you kept a journal. Did you keep a journal during this time, or?
Yeah, actually, no. Thanks for asking that, Amber. Nobody's ever asked me how I got the material. A lot of people have asked me how I remembered the stories. They are burned into my soul. So when you read a lot of them, you know, there's some kind of exciting times in the cockpit. Mm-hmm. But I learned something about leadership in every single story. And when I would talk to people about leadership, I would relate these stories. And the number of times I've related them, they just sunk into my brain. And it was very easy to look back on my career and say, well, I'm using that story to talk about this. And you know, storytelling is very powerful. And so somebody, you know, a story in your past or experience, and you can then give the lesson, which is how the book is written.
You know, I read the book. And then I went back and did the audio version, which you do the audio version, mm-hmm. and you told me that was more difficult to do than actually write the book.
It was.
But I got more out of the audio version because you were telling me the story. Mm-hmm. So folks, I would recommend both, because I mean, it really does, it made a big difference to me to comprehend it, for one thing. So there's a lot of lessons, a lot of great lessons in the book, you know, from where you failed and then you succeeded.
There's 3 themes in that book, Sam, and you highlighted, you know, one of them, and that's failure. The first theme is having a North Star. And so what I want people to get out of reading that book is you have a North Star, something you're shooting for, mm-hmm. you know, down the road, something out there. It's something that you want to do. The second theme is failure, as you mentioned. And on the way to the North Star, you'll risk everything to get there. And so you'll fail, and you'll fall, and you'll skin your knees, and you'll get up. And then the third theme is the resilience or the recovery from failure. And it's to get up and keep trying towards that North Star. You only really fail when you quit. And you know, in the book, there's really nothing that stands out because everything was a journey. Mm-hmm. There are several stories, like when I ejected out of an F-14 in August of 1987. That one kind of sticks out a little bit. Before I did that on my first tour, I had the Night in a Barrel where I went around 7 times, could not figure out how to get aboard the carrier. There's nowhere else to land. That one kind of sticks out. But I find myself in a situation where I'm describing something I've learned or a story that I want to tell. I just grab one of those stories and pull them out. So they sort of all go together.
So that's those stories are worth the book. I'm just telling you. Those stories are great, the ones you just mentioned. One other thing, I kind of want to go back a little bit because I knew your parents and their influence on your career. I will say this about your parents. Your mother was such a sweet lady.
Thank you.
And your dad was so intimidating. So every time I'd go over to Mike's house, I'd feel like he'd look at me like, hey kid, you're a bad influence on my son here. He's got this mission to get to the Naval Academy and you're this long-haired guy playing a guitar. And so I was always intimidated by your dad. But I think, based on what I read in the book, they were both good for you in your journey. Tell me a little bit about it.
So in the early part of the book, we describe the emotional drivers that everybody has. And in order to be a good leader, you have to understand what your emotional drivers are. And so thanks for the compliments. My dad, one time, what Sam hasn't mentioned is our fathers were United States Marines. And so my dad was a Marine major, and he was the commanding officer of a unit. And in the base exchange, there was a picture in there of him because he was in command. And it was a very imposing picture. There were a couple of F-4 aviators, a Marine F-4, a pilot and a backseater, who stayed at our house one night for some reason. And they were in the exchange, and they mentioned that somehow met my dad, and they said we need a place to stay. Our jet's broke or something like that. But what they mentioned in my home was they had seen all the pictures up there, and of the one intimidating Marine they saw was my dad, and they stayed in the house. But Dad was a very demanding man. And in the book I talk about it, and I don't get the words right, but it's something like I never could do good enough. And so he kept moving the bar, and he was not very complimentary. He didn't say, I'm proud of you, son, very often at all. And when he did, though, it was very, very powerful. I mean, I met that bar. My mama, so it drove me to prove my dad wrong that I could succeed. Right. My mom, on the other hand, was like, you're the best. And I was the oldest son of two sons they had, and so I was very committed to my vision, which was go to the Naval Academy. And so I was trying to get good grades. I was trying to do well. Yes, we did have some good times together, and I think I erred a little bit and then came back. I managed to get to where I wanted to go.
Thanks to me.
Yeah, but she was very complimentary, so that buoyed me up. My dad's pressure made me push against that, and so as I describe in the book, both of them were upward forces. If I had only my dad, I would get crushed under not being good enough, and I'd never make the grade, and I'd have some kind of an inferiority complex. Right. And if I was only my mom, my ego would be huge. And so I have this weird sense or mix of ego and humility, a little bit of an imposter syndrome because, Dad, you're not good enough. Doesn't say I'm proud of you very often, and Mom going, hey, you're great, keep going. Those two things gave me that fire.
That makes a lot of sense to end up with this final product. Because, you did prove him wrong. He did eventually tell you he was proud of you. Mm-hmm. So that's such a win for you in your life. So another thing about your book, I wanted, if somebody's not a management or they're not a leadership person, they're not the boss at work, what can they get out of your book?
Well, the biggest thing is, first of all, yes, they are stories about being in the Navy, naval aviation, flying off a carrier, being a naval officer. But we wrote the book to apply to anybody who's in a leadership position. And the way I define leadership is if you're in a position to influence somebody, you're a grandparent, you're a babysitter, you're obviously a parent, you're a peer leader, you're a leader in the church, you're a leader in an organization, you are a leader, and leader is influence. And so what I try to teach people is you don't need a title to lead. In fact, what I advocate for is lead from your heart, lead by being a good person. Lead through connecting with the people that you're working with. By being a good person, by being a good human, by showing people that they matter, that you care about them, that they have, they add to the product, you connect with them closer, and that influence will go because they'll go with you. If you try to lead with your title, or you say I'm the boss, or you say because you got to follow me because I'm the CEO or I'm the admiral, they're not going to follow you as readily.
Right.
I will also say, last point about this, well, you led in the military, and it must be different outside. People are people. Leading people is the same everywhere, and you just make people know that you care about them and that they matter, their work matters, their opinions matter, and you will be able to lead them in the direction you want to go.
In your book, you talk a lot about the hand of providence. I had never heard it put that way, but it really impressed me because I've had that in my life, where you never doubt the hand of providence, assisted by people who take the lead. How has the hand of providence affected your journey?
I think my journey is preordained. People of faith believe in God, or they believe in Islam, or some greater power that guides their life. And the faithful believe that they should do those teachings. When I think about life, I have this weird sense that I was supposed to lead this life. But in order to lead that life, you have to be bold, and you have to have a goal, and you have to have that North Star, and you have to go that direction. And so everything that happened to me in my life, I think, is the hand of providence. I had my North Star. I wanted to go to the Naval Academy. I got to go there. And I pretty much went there without error. I got to go. But through my naval career, I ran into stuff all the time. I'd fail and fall and get up, and why did that happen? And then something would become very apparent. Oh, that's why that happened. Wow. And so the older I got in my career and my life, the more I thought about even the bad things, and especially the bad things. Okay, this is supposed to happen. There's going to be some reason going forward. And so I think, people will say, well, I made that decision myself. I didn't need the hand of providence. Yeah, but you were supposed to make that decision. And how it turned out. Or I didn't want to go to Navy nuclear power, and it's very prevalent in the book, strong opposition to going nuclear power. And I ended up going that way, and life turned out wonderfully. I didn't select for a carrier every time until the last time. I was crushed, and I'm done, I've failed. And all of a sudden I got selected on the last look. I had a wonderful aircraft carrier tour as the commanding officer USS Nimitz, and that was supposed to be. And so I think it's a combination of the hand of providence or God or fate, and then a bold person who says, I'm gonna listen to my providential guide, and I'm gonna go after that goal. And I know that I will succeed.
Again, another great story in the book. That story about you getting Nimitz and why, not getting the first one and getting the second one, and the anger you had, and then it ended up turning out to be a great thing for you. So that, again, folks, it's another reason to get the book. So I'm going to change gears a little bit here. So you brought your flight jacket.
Yep.
Look at that thing. I want to talk about your former life as a Top Gun pilot. First of all, I want to show off, this is the patch. So you call it is it a patch wearer when you...
Yeah, so if somebody has a Top Gun patch or an Air Force Weapons School patch, you call them a patch wearer.
Yeah. So when you walk into a bar with military guys and they see that, they're like, okay, this is Tom Cruise in person here. It's the real guy.
Well, the respect goes up.
Yeah.
Also, the opposition goes up. It's like, all right, let's go. Let's see what this guy has. Let's see what this guy knows.
Yeah. And I think you've got the goods, Mike, from knowing you. So I want to talk about the call sign. So your call sign was?
Nasty.
Okay. So tell a brief story about how you got the call sign.
So call signs are used because in the aviation world, you need something to be able to label a person at the other end of the radio that you're talking to, and not just say Mike, because there's like 5 mics on the radio. And so the call signs come for aviators so that you know who you're talking to for communications brevity. So call signs start to be developed in the early part of training. And so we were in training in Naval Air Station Kingsville. And this story's in the book. My wife Kelly will say she was there. So all of you thinking out there that, after Sam's call sign things, get your mind out of the gutter. Everybody thinks, okay, Nasty, he must have done something really bad. So sometimes I let that roll. And other times I tell the honest story. The neat thing is that I got this call sign in about the early part of 1983, and I never did anything since to earn something else. Never did any of those things, the stories you told. So the short story is that the instructors kept giving us call signs. So my name, Manazir, sounds very close to menage a trois. And so the instructor said, "You're menage a trois." And, okay, you can't argue with him. You can't say, "I don't want that." And so I dutifully went down to the para-rigger shop, got a new name tag, menage a trois, and set it here, and put it up on the board. And I'm kind of like, okay, that's bad. And so we're in the officers club on one Friday night. Kelly's standing right next to me, and there were a circle of us in there. And a woman who Kelly brought was kind of fascinated with call signs. And so she's walking around, and there's Ace, and there's a very young-looking aviator, and his call sign's Kid, because he looks like a child. Right. They get to a guy next to me, Mike Matheny, and if you say his name with a New York accent, it's kind of like Martini. So Matheny, Martini, so his call sign was Martini. It's kind of cool. And then she gets to me and she goes, "Menage, that's nasty." Just like that. And Martini goes, "That's it, nasty, new call sign." So on Monday, I dutifully went down, got a name tag, stuck it on, said nasty. The instructors went, "That's kind of funny, nasty," and it stuck. And it never went anywhere else. It's short, it's 2 syllables. There was nobody else with that call sign, and so it stayed.
A lot easier than menage a trois.
Yeah, and I didn't like that.
Okay, so what goes through your mind when you're getting to step into a superpowered jet?
Yeah, so the picture is of me standing waiting to carrier qualify, not initially, but refresher carrier qualify in a Super Hornet, an F-18F. And that's standing on the deck of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower. I was a 1-star admiral there. And we're doing what's called a hot switch. And that's when the airplane is still turning, the engines are on. They turn the left engine off, the pilot comes out, the backseater stays in, you crawl up there, get in the front seat, strap in, do your pre-flight checks, and then go. So when you walk, first of all, the flight deck is the foremost dangerous 4 acres in the world. Mm-hmm. You've really got to watch out what's going on.
Right.
And so as you walk out of the inside of the ship, out on the flight deck, you step over the combing onto the flight deck and you walk out and you get your flight gear on. You're really looking around, looking for hazards, looking and seeing if you're in the right place and things like that. And so I walk out there, I'm watching for hazards. I'm standing in a safe place. I'm comfortable. I've just got my hands on the edge of the life preserver unit, and I'm looking at the pilot, and I'm watching him go through his shutdown procedures. I'm looking at the weapon system operator in the back. He's giving me some hand signals. Hey, jet's up. It's good. We got 9.8 thousand, 9.8 for gas, so 9,800 pounds of gas. Just some things, and I'm starting to consider how I'm going to get my mindset to going from just being a human being walking around a carrier to being the operator of that jet. We're about to go out. I'm going to get in. It's fairly high intensity, get my procedures done, strap in quickly, start talking to the backseater, get the integrated checks done, and then ready to go quickly. And so you always want to go quickly. You want to get there and get on the cat and get going. So like, all right, I'm going through my procedures in my head. I'm starting, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. This is what the day looks like. I'm looking around. Mm-hmm. Pretty good how many airplanes are in the pattern, so I'm going to deal with that. Sort of just thinking about the whole upcoming situation. And then climb up in there, and now I've turned into a different person than just sitting here with you.
So you told me you got to think 5 miles ahead?
Yep.
That's kind of tough to do.
Yeah,
so you're moving pretty fast.
So a jet, is typically about 300 knots. You get shot off the front of the carrier, you go from 0 to 150 in about 2 seconds, 4 Gs right here. In the Super Hornet, you actually hold on to the handle. You don't fly the airplanes, it flies itself. Mm-hmm. So keep your hand up here, so you salute, put your hand up here, and then go off, and then you're grabbing control of that airplane, and now you're rolling. So you got to hit your brain cage at the end of that 2-second cat stroke. There, okay, going off, there's my interval right there. I can climb up here, get to 600 feet, start turning downwind, and get the right place. You can come around the corner and then land.
I can't imagine this. That's very impressive. It really is. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So in addition to you being a Top Gun fighter pilot, you've also commanded squadrons of fighter jets, commanded a major aircraft carrier, the Nimitz, mm-hmm. served in the Office of Secretary of Defense, been deployed about a dozen times, and this is only a 30-minute show, okay? So what was probably, if you had to say, what was the one thing you enjoyed the most in your career? I think I know the answer, but go ahead.
Well, the most enjoyable time was being commanding officer aircraft carrier. That is an epic job. It's the best job in the galaxy. The path to get there is really, really tough. There's a year and a half of school, and then there's 2 years as second in command, and you're learning how to lead 5,000 people down and in while the captain is putting the ship where it needs to be. A couple of fun tours. I got to drive a supply ship around as a fighter pilot. It's pretty cool, kind of like a pirate, and learn how to drive a ship. It turns out that as an aviator, you have a really good sense of relative motion. Same thing with ships. It's just a lot slower. So, I'm whipping my airplane around. I can see where the relative motion is. I have a 100,000-ton aircraft carrier. Now it's much slower, but with the momentum, you have to be very careful what's going on. So you translate those skill sets from aviating to commanding. But I just loved just being the CO of the carrier. I loved all 5,000 people. I didn't learn 5,000 names. I learned all my squadron names at 300, but not 5,000. And it was just neat being the captain of that ship. And I felt so much one with the ship and the captain of that crew. And we had a really neat bond that I loved. And so that was 30 months, so almost 3 years in command. And the myth is that you're not more than 3 years as the captain of aircraft carriers. That's the longest a human can go without sleep, because every night there was at least one phone call. I did not get an uninterrupted night of sleep for 3 years. Wow. So they're calling you about the reactor. Even ashore when the ship is there, the reactors are not all the way shut down, and so there's things going on the ship or something's happening with a member of the crew, and so they're always waking you up to inform you what's going on.
Wow. Tell us about the time you crashed a $75 million aircraft. I actually crashed my computer one time, and that was tough. But tell me about the $75 million aircraft.
I'm still paying, by the way, United States taxpayers, coming out of my paycheck.
I bet.
I don't get as much military retirement as I should. I jumped out of a Tomcat in August of '87. It was out of control. The engines had failed. And part of that was me. Even though the engines had failed, the airplane was out of control, I didn't allow it to get itself settled before I put controls in. I was very, very concerned about getting the airplane flying again so I could start one of the engines, because they were both failed and stalled and not working. So I didn't wait long enough, and I did something with the controls that actually kept the airplane out of control and drove us below ejection altitude. I actually ejected a little bit later than we should have, but we did that part okay. But we lost the airplane under thousands of feet of water, and so because Sam, the backseater, who was actually a pilot riding with me that day, we were both alive, our testimony is what told the boards what happened with the airplane. And so on one of the boards, I told them exactly what I did and why. And I said I got really concerned. I had to get the airplane flying again. I put controls in, I put them in this way, and they said, "You realize you put controls in early?" "Yes, I do." And so I told them what happened. Later on, one of the members of the board said, he came up to me and he says, "Hey, thank you." I said, "For what?" And he said, "You told the truth in the board." He says, "You could have said there was a spoiler stuck up. Sam, the backseater, didn't know to look outside. You could have said something was going on and you couldn't fight it and it kept staying out of control, but that you just let go and you didn't know what happened. And we just ended up having to eject. But you didn't. You told us the truth. It got us to the bottom of this mishap. It gave us the causal factors. And I just looked at him and I said, I couldn't lie to you guys. I wouldn't feel right. I mean, I just had to, my integrity was born out of the Naval Academy, the way I was brought up by my father and mother, and it just didn't occur to me to make up a story to cover what I had done wrong. And the other thing too was, this particular maneuver that we ejected out of was a fairly risky maneuver, and they'd had a lot of people, have an out of control situation that successfully recovered. They had a lot of people lose one engine. Nobody had lost both. And they actually they stopped that maneuver for a while. They also stopped some of the training I got. So it added to the safety of the crew. And Sam, I couldn't have lived myself, but I made up a story. So I really do believe in integrity and honor and those kind of things.
Of course. I know you've won a lot of awards in your life. And, you've accomplished very many things. But despite all of that and my bad influence over the year, I have this to present to you. This trophy. Read what it says.
Mike Manazir, Sam's most accomplished friend. To the Academy, to my sponsors, to my mom and dad.
So when I see these videos of you talking, I want to see that on the shelf with all the other stuff. That was very highly earned by you.
Right by my book on the shelf. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, listen, Mike, thank you so much for coming up here and visiting with us. And he's coming back he'll be at Wesley in the first quarter of the year in 24. He'll be speaking at another engagement over there. We'll let you know the date. But thank you so much for taking your time to come and visit with us. It's always good catching up with you.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Sam.
it.
Yeah, it's a great time.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it.
Hey, I want to thank my special guest and my longtime friend Mike Manazir for coming on to the show tonight. Folks, every Thursday night at 10 o'clock, tune in to WHIG and catch this show. Next episode, I have another special guest, the most recognized person in Raleigh, North Carolina. Greg Fishel will be right here. So make sure you tune in. See you soon.